session. I think probably we'll start in the usual way by just sitting together for a minute or so. So maybe just sitting up, lengthening the spine, a real sense of planting the feet on the floor, opening to the sounds around us. Checking in with how we are in this moment. Noticing any thoughts or thinking, activity in the mind. Noticing any emotions or physical sensations in the body. Now finding the breath. Maybe taking a few deep breaths. Welcome everybody, and thank you for coming along. My name is Regan-Addis. I'm one of the directors and founders of an organisation called the Mindfulness Association. It's the biggest mindfulness training organisation and teacher training organisation in Scotland. And I've just whizzed down on the train from Scotland this morning, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you just now. So we're on stand 177, which is just over there, so if you want to come over, there's lots of leaflets. I think there's leaflets on the chairs. Hello.
Sorry, can we sit here?
Yes, please do. Welcome.
Perfect, thank you.
Welcome. So what I'm going to talk about today is insight practice and how we progress through mindfulness practice, compassion practice to insight practice. And recently, earlier this year, this book was published, From Mindfulness to Insight, which myself and my colleagues Rob Nairn and Choden wrote. And so there's some of these available on the stand, and that gives a thorough description of the whole kind of pathway. So the first step in our three-stage process of mind training is mindfulness training. And our definition of mindfulness that we use is knowing what's happening while it's happening without a reference. And there's two elements to our mindfulness practice. It's the knowing what's happening while it's happening, which is about being present. And then the second part is about the attitude that we bring when we are present. An attitude of openness, kindness, curiosity to whatever unfolds in our experience. And our mindfulness training has two elements. It's got the technique element, where we focus the mind in quite a relaxed way on the support, for example, the breath or sound, and then we notice when the mind has wandered, we're curious about where it's wandered to, and then very gently we bring ourselves back to focusing on our support again. And that's the technique, being present, noticing that the mind has wandered, so we've lost presence, and bringing ourselves back to being present. So that's the technique element, knowing what's happening while it's happening. The other element is the attitude. So this is the attitude that we bring to our practice, an attitude of without preference. So an attitude of being okay with our experience exactly what it is, exactly how it is. Because often when we look at the mind, what we find maybe isn't what we're expecting to find, or more likely what we're hoping to find. So we need an attitude of allowing and kindness and acceptance so that we can be okay with whatever arises in our experience. And through our mindfulness practice, we get some stability of mind, which is the first stage on our practice. The second stage is compassion. We introduce kindness and compassion right from the beginning of our pathway, but the second stage is a real focus on compassion. And our definition of compassion that we use is the Dalai Lama's definition, which is a sensitivity to the suffering of ourselves and others with a deep desire to relieve that suffering. So again, there are two elements to that definition. The first one is a sensitivity to the suffering of ourselves and others, which is turning towards that which is difficult within our experience. Yeah? And that's that which is difficult around us. And then the second part is this deep desire to do something about it. And in order to be able to do this, a big part of the compassion trainings is cultivating the resources of compassion. So cultivating qualities like loving kindness and joyfulness and equanimity, so that when things are difficult, we've got the resources to kind of face them. And one of the main aims of our compassion training is to develop a sense of safeness within our experience, a real sense of embodied safeness within our experience. So that hopefully by the end of the mindfulness and compassion training, there's some stability, but there's a real attitude of compassion and kindness towards whatever's arising, and a growing sense of embodied safeness within us. And these are the things that create the conditions for insight to emerge, which is the third stage of our training, which is what I'm mainly going to focus on talking about today. And I'll share with you one of our insight practices as well. So the insight definition is similar to the mindfulness definition, and that is recognizing what's happening while it's happening. So in mindfulness, we're knowing what's happening. So with mindfulness, we're knowing at a surface level what's happening within our experience. With an insight practice, we're recognizing at a deeper level exactly what's happening underneath. And we often use the analogy of the snake versus the rope when we're talking about insight. So imagine that you're maybe on holiday in Australia, and you kind of walk into a dark cabin, and there's like this squiggly thing on the floor, and you immediately think it's a snake. So like you behave as if it's a snake. So you're terrified, maybe you freeze, and you want to run away, maybe you scream. So there's a real kind of sense of fear and terror. Then somebody else walks in behind you, switches the light on, and it's a rope. Yeah? And this is something we often buy into stories in the mind, which make us think that our lives are full of snakes, when actually it's just rope. Yeah. So this is the kind, we use this analogy for our insight practice, so we can see through the stories that our mind is telling us to get more in touch more with what's really happening, which often is nowhere near as scary or annoying or sad as our mind tells us it is going to be. So with mindfulness practice, we're looking at what's arising in the mind, yeah? And it's like, plucking the heads off the weeds. Whereas with insight practice, we're looking deeper so we can pull things out by the roots, so we can make real transformative change. And this is something that we notice all the time on our courses, that people's lives really are transformed for the better. Sometimes we use this analogy of a spreadsheet. So if you imagine your Excel spreadsheet with all the numbers on it, yeah? So mindfulness practice is seeing the numbers on the spreadsheet. Compassion practice is being okay with the numbers as they are, even if you're in the red, yeah? And the insight practice gives us access to the equations underneath the spreadsheet that are giving rise to the numbers. So with the insight practice, we're going a bit deeper. So how do we go a bit deeper? With our mindfulness practice, we're looking at what is arising in the mind. So we're looking at our thoughts, our emotions, and our physical sensations. And with the insight practice, we turn our focus 180 degrees to look at that part of the mind that's observing these thoughts and emotions and physical sensations. So if I say to you now, how are you? Like you check in, don't you? You check in with how you're feeling, and maybe you have a sense of you and your thoughts, or you and your emotions, or you and your physical sensations. So the observer bit is the you bit, yeah? So this bit that's able to know what thoughts are arising, it's able to know what feelings and emotions are there. So in our insight practice, we're turning 180 degrees to look at that observing part of the mind, to see what it's up to see what stories it's telling us, and what tricks it may well be playing. So it's this observer part where all our habitual patterns are sort of put into operation. So maybe we've got habitual patterns, like when we see a squiggly shape on the floor, we immediately think it's a snake. We have habitual patterns that somebody says something to us and like, I'm Heather, therefore I have to be angry, or I'm Heather, somebody said this to me, therefore I have to be sad, therefore I have to do this, therefore I have to do that. So all these habitual patterns, it's this observer part of the mind that's like putting them into operation. And it traps us into our habitual patterns of thoughts and behaviours, which, is fine, except many of these habitual patterns of thought and behaviour cause us to suffer, and that's where there can be a problem. So there are two aspects to our insight training. One is sensitising ourselves to the subtle mechanisms that are happening in the mind that normally we're not able to observe directly. So then when something happens, we're able to recognise it because we know the theory, we know the models of mind. So one aspect of our training, and that's what we're going to do today in a practice, is one of the sensitising practices. So that's one element. And the other element of our practice is to learn to do less and less and to be more and more in our meditation practice. Yeah? So gradually learning to settle more, to sit back. So when thoughts and emotions and physical sensations are arising in our experience, we're not compulsively grabbing onto them. Yeah? We're just able to sit back and be the impartial witness of our unfolding experience. So the practice that we're going to do today is about sensitising ourselves to the process of how thoughts become thinking. So thoughts are arising in the mind all the time. Yeah. So maybe when you notice you're daydreaming, or when you're just about to fall asleep, you might notice there's random thoughts popping up all the time. And we often don't choose them, or we don't choose them. They just pop up, they're involuntary. So there's thoughts arising in the mind all the time, and that's absolutely not a problem. Thoughts arise and go away. The problem is that this observer part of the mind compulsively engages the thoughts, and then thinking starts to happen. And when we get caught up in thinking, that takes us away from the present moment. Yeah. So this is the critical bit that we'll be exploring this morning: the involuntary arising of thoughts in the mind, the compulsive tendency of that observer part of the mind to engage the thought and get caught up in thinking. So more trivial thoughts, it's often quite easy to allow them to come and go. But if thoughts have an emotional tone behind them, or they're to do with me, then we're much more likely to engage them and get caught up in thinking. So I think what I'll do is I'll just guide us in a short practice, and in this practice we'll settle for a bit, and then I'm just going to drop some words into your mind, and I just want you to notice how you react to those words, whether there's any response, whether any thoughts come up, any images, any words, and whether you get caught up in thinking or whether you're just able to let those thoughts be. So before we start that practice, are there any questions? No? We maybe sit for about 15 minutes, yeah? And this is a favourite practice of mine that I first learned from my meditation teacher Rob Nairn, who's the main author on the book. Okay. So to begin with, checking in with our posture. So Maybe sitting a little bit forward on the chair rather than leaning back if that's comfortable for you. And planting the feet firmly on the ground. A sense of lengthening the spine. And then we will reflect on our intention for this practice. So our intention is to notice how thoughts arise in the mind, how we engage them and get caught up in thinking. So we can just be curious and open about how this unfolds in our experience. And then at the beginning of practice, we always take some time to reflect on our motivation for practicing mindfulness. So why do we want to practice mindfulness and compassion and insight? We each have our individual reasons, maybe to benefit ourselves in some way. But also recognizing that as we become more mindful, those around us also benefit. Now moving our focus to the breathing, so maybe feeling the breath coming and going, maybe at the nostrils or the chest or the belly, wherever you feel it, and deepening the breath slightly, and seeing if you can make the in-breath and the out-breath a similar length. Counting can help, so you might choose to breathe in for a count of 3 or 4, and breathe out for the same count. Or you might like to use a phrase as you breathe in, saying, I know I'm breathing in, and as you breathe out, saying, I know I'm breathing out. Time that you notice that the mind has wandered, allowing that, letting it be, simply refocusing on regulating the breathing and counting all phrases. Now focusing a little bit more on the out breath, noticing any relaxing quality as the body releases the out breath. Seeing if the mind can learn from the body. The body releases the breath and relaxes. The mind releases involvement with thoughts, allowing thoughts to come and go freely and can begin to settle down. Now letting go of any counting or phrases and just allow the breath to return to its natural rhythm. Moving on into grounding in the body. So maybe starting at the crown of the head, noticing any physical sensations in the forehead. coming down to the level of the eyes and the ears, sensing inside the body and feeling any sensations that are there in the region of the mouth, the jaw, the neck and the shoulders, the upper arms and the chest, the lower arms and the belly, any physical sensations in the pelvic region, sitting bones, maybe feeling the contact between the sitting bones and the chair. Noticing how the thighs are feeling, sensing inside the thighs, what sensations are present just now. Maybe you feel the hands resting there. And the knees. Any physical sensations inside the lower legs, the ankles. Down into the feet. Tuning into any sensations of contact from the insides of the soles of the feet, feeling the feet resting on the earth. And from the feet opening up to the body as a whole, becoming aware of the whole body, unconditionally supported on the earth and surrounded by space. And again, seeing if the mind can learn from the body, we can just allow the body to rest, unconditionally supported by the earth. And in the same way, we can allow the mind to rest, unconditionally supported in the body. And then whenever the mind wanders, just noticing where it's wandered to, and then very gently bringing ourselves back to grounding in the body and resting with a light focus on breath or on sound. And now I'm going to drop some words into experience. So when you hear the words, just noticing what happens in response to the words. And the first word is water. So noticing any thoughts, emotions, sensations that unfold in response to this word. The second word is bicycle. Just open and curious about whatever unfolds when we hear that word. And the next word is holiday. And maybe we notice that we're thinking about our last holiday or a future holiday. And if we notice that we're thinking, just letting that be And very gently bringing ourselves back to this body, grounding in the body, resting with a light focus on breath or sound. And the next word is to-do list. So noticing what happens in response to hearing that word. And letting go of the words now, grounding once more in the body. Light focus on breath or sound, open to our experience as it is. And then just reflecting back over the practice and just reflecting on what we noticed in response to the words. Maybe some of the words there was more thinking about them than others. What did you notice? And then as we come towards the end of this period of practice, just taking a few moments to acknowledge the benefit that comes from our meditation practice and cultivating the wish that the benefit from our practice will grow for each of us here and go on to be shared with those around us. Maybe just for the next minute or so, you'd like to just turn to the person next to you and just share with them anything that you noticed during that practice. This is one of these exercises that we use in the program to sensitize us to that sense of thoughts arising in the mind, engaging it and getting caught up in thinking. So I hope you find that interesting. Many of our practices are available on an app, the Mindfulness-based Living app, which is free. So if you've got an Android phone or an iPhone, you can just look for Mindfulness-based Living and download that. And all our mindfulness, compassion, and insight practices are there for you to listen to. So as I said, the insight training has got these two elements to it. Sensitizing ourselves to these kind of subliminal activities that are happening in the mind. That's one element. And the second element is learning to do less and less in our practice and rest our mind more and more. If there are things like that you have, if you recognize them, just have a go at trying these things, so long as it's legal. Yeah, just have a go at trying these things and notice what the mind starts telling you. You know, you'll get messages in the mind saying, I'm really sorry, you don't do this kind of thing, you have to stop. So that can be quite an interesting daily life activity to do. And I was very glad I did it, because one of the things I did is I took myself on some roller coasters experienced a massive tantrum in my own mind of fear and terror as I was in the long queue waiting to go onto the roller coaster. So it's just really interesting to watch how these subliminal kind of reflexes are unfolding in our mind, saying to us all the time, I'm Heather, therefore I don't go on roller coasters, and that's it, non-negotiable. Another thing that you might do, again, if you go to a restaurant or if you go to a coffee shop, you've probably got a habit about what you order. Order something that you normally don't like, and notice what happens in your mind as you're doing that, and see what the process is and how that unfolds. So that could be an interesting way of getting in touch with some of these subliminal mechanisms that tell us that we have to behave in a particular way. So that's one thing to have a go at. In terms of in our mindfulness meditation practice, learning to rest the mind, learning to do less and less in our meditation practice. A great way to do this is by being aware the one time every day when the mind does settle and does rest, and that's just before we go to sleep. So when you're in bed, just falling asleep, set the intention to be aware of that process. Yeah. So rather than just kind of zoning out when you're going to sleep, just set that intention. I'm just going to be aware of this process, so that you become familiar with how the mind feels when it's resting. Yeah. And again, first thing in the morning, it can be really interesting to set the intention before you go to bed, to wake up in the morning and just be aware of what's unfolding. So this has got to be a morning when you're not going to get up, so the alarm's not going to go off. You're just going to wake up gradually. You set the intention before you go to sleep, and you wake up, and just become aware of the relaxed mind and the gradual unfolding of imagery that just passes through the mind. And then at some point, this observer part will kind of latch onto one, and everything contracts in the mind, and we wake up and we, start thinking. So that can be quite an interesting exercise to do, to sort of learn what the mind is like when it's resting, and then when we come to our mindfulness practice, we can get a sense of what it feels like to have a resting mind. So I think that's everything that I've got to say this afternoon. I hope you found it interesting and beneficial.